Cabin boy, come down from the rigging. Cabin boy, come down from the rigging.
It began with a few words toward the end of the President's regularly scheduled Saturday morning radio broadcast. But before I wrap up our chat today, I'd like to say a few words about a dangerous new fad that's beginning to take hold in our high schools and colleges. Apparently, in the belief that it will get them high, or stoned, as the kids say, youngsters are taking rusty old railroad spikes and hammering them into their own foreheads with ball-peen hammers. I cannot stress this enough. This is a dangerous action, one I intend to look into. I will appoint Vice President Biden to head up a blue ribbon panel to see what we can do to stop this dangerous, self-destructive fad before it gets out of hand. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America. On Sunday, the First Lady appeared on Meet the Press, Vice President Biden appeared on Face the Nation, and Attorney General Eric Holder appeared on ABC's This Week, where he explained that pulling up railroad spikes for the purpose of driving them into one's own skull could be looked at as a criminal activity, because if a train were to derail due to missing railroad spikes, whoever removed the spikes could be considered as liable for the tragedy. The conservative reaction began on Monday morning with the Fox and Friends show.
Well, the nanny state is at it again, telling Americans what they can and cannot do with their own brains.
Right you are, Steve. In an effort to frighten American parents, President Obama has whipped up this railroad spike gate out of thin air. Gretchen, have you ever heard of kids driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
Monkeys are adorable.
Neither have I. And here to tell the truth about this fantasy scare tactic is Dr. Elmo Critter, a neurosurgeon from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Dr. Critter, are kids getting high from driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
No, that's silly. Driving a railroad spike into the frontal lobes of your brain would perhaps produce a mild sense of euphoria at the best, but then there's the pain of getting the spike through your forehead skin, your skull, and the brain's protective covering.
But wouldn't it kill you, Doc?
Well, not necessarily, as if you're really dedicated, as you can see in the animation, if you're very careful with the placement of the spike, locate it directly between the brain's two hemispheres, you could likely survive having a railroad spike driven in between them.
Brains have hemispheres, like globes.
Globes are round.
Well, we learn something new every morning on Fox and Friends. Reports of self-induced railroad spike brain injuries and death began to trickle into newsrooms, and Rush Limbaugh picked up on the controversy for his Monday noontime program.
It's just wild that Obama is scaring kids this way. Just like when his wife, Queen Jumbo, told the kids they should eat nothing but lettuce and filtered water while she gobbled down the French fries. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And as you saw on Fox and Friends this morning, a leading neurosurgeon said that driving a railroad spike into your own head is a perfectly safe thing to do if you do it carefully. Like smoking, like drinking. There are risks you take. But who is Obama to tell you you can't take a risk? That's what made America great. Where's Mayor Bloomberg on this? He said you can't have a 32-ounce big gulp. Well, faithful listeners across the fruited plains, I have just finished 3 32-ounce big gulps. And I will now demonstrate just how safe it is to drive a railroad spike into your own skull. Now, if I say anything even slightly stupid in the next few minutes, it'll be because of the state of euphoria caused by the penetration of the frontal lobes directly between the two hemispheres of the brain. Now watch as I, Rush Limbaugh, once again prove the nanny state does not have your best interests at heart and only wants to control you. Rusty, the spike, and the hammer, please. Thank you. And you want to make sure you use a clean spike for this. We can't emphasize that enough. Use a clean railroad spike because you don't want to get an infection. That could be deadly. All right? Here we go. Now I've marked the spot on my noble, manly forehead where the doc on Fox and Friends said the spike should go. And we're off.
Despite Rush Limbaugh's death as a result of driving a railroad spike into his own brain, the various Tea Party organizations started the meme that Obama had somehow provided a poisoned railroad spike to Limbaugh, and set about to prove, once and for all, that driving railroad spikes into your own foreheads was a perfectly safe, fun, family activity if done carefully. At a mass gathering of Tea Party activists, Dr. Jerome Corsi, one of the original Swift boaters and senior staff writer for WorldNet Daily, addressed a group of 500 angry white Americans who did not like being told what they could or could not drive into their own skulls.
Obama isn't even an American, let alone a doctor. How the hell does he think he can get away with telling honest, patriotic, God-fearing white American men and women what they can and cannot use with their brains? So, raise your railroad spikes to the skies in your right hand. Grasp the ball-peen hammers in your left hand. Place the point of the spike right between your eyes, just above the bridge of your nose. Now you want to angle the spike so that it goes straight in, okay? Parents with small children, do this to yourself first, then to your children after you're finished. On my mark, is everybody ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
There were hundreds of such Tea Party gatherings all across the nation on Tuesday. At last report, 1.5 million Americans were killed by driving railroad spikes into their own heads, and that death toll continues to rise every day. But oddly enough, not everyone who attempted this fatal accomplishment was killed. In fact, when Sarah Palin addressed a Tea Party gathering on March 15th, she seemed just fine.
Kind of like getting a nipple pierced, but with a lot more blood. Other than that, piece of cake.
Railroad spikes and hammers bearing the CPAC logo were handed out. They're still removing bodies from the conference center at this hour.
I am a cabin boy and that's a life for me. I climb aboard this pirate ship to sail across the sea. I've been to countries every trip, but that's the thrill of a pirate ship. Oh, I am a cabin boy and that's a life for me.
Hello. Welcome to this episode of Comrade Cabin Boy Mocks the Lickspittle Bourgeoisie with your host, the Comrade Cabin Boy. For the next hour, or until he runs out of material, Comrade Cabin Boy will mock those who need mocking, deride those who require derision, and generally point out the foolishness of people who vote against their own self-interests. And now, here's the Comrade Cabin Boy.
Hi friends, Bill Schmalfeld here. As I record this, it's early in the afternoon, April 14th, 2014. And some days it's just harder than others to be optimistic about the future of humanity. Yesterday, you get this grizzled, old, used-up man from Missouri, a white supremacist, hates the Jews, goes over to Overland Park, Kansas, to 2 different places that are run by Jews, and kills 3 Christians, hollering Heil Hitler from the back of the police car as he's driven away. And the first thing the right wing wants to do is point out that this guy ran for office as a Democrat, which he did before he made a couple tries as a Republican. You shake your head. What's going on with this world? Look at the Ukraine right now. Is this not the exact same thing that Hitler did in the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, in Austria, in Poland? German citizens being placed in danger. We must send in the troops. Don't we as a species learn anything when we fuck up? Why do we keep hitting ourselves in the head with a hammer over and over and over again, never learning that the reason our head hurts is because we keep hitting it with a hammer? And what do the lickspittles want to talk about? Well, they want to see my ASVAB scores. They want to see the intelligence tests I took before I joined the military 41 years ago. Yeah, I have those at my disposal. And what else? Oh, yeah, I'm stupid, I'm fat, and therefore my books aren't any good. All 16 of them, just write them right off. The one that was published by a publisher, the 15 that were self-published. These lickspittles are so superior, they've not deigned to offer anything in rebuttal. Their own books. My radio stations, they suck. Oh yeah, the Beatles, they suck now. Led Zeppelin, they're terrible. Deep Purple, ugh. Frank Zappa, he uses naughty words sometimes. And comedians like George Carlin and Janine Garofalo and Jim Gaffigan and the late Bill Hicks, Patton Oswalt. None of them are any good. Why? Because I use them on my radio station. That's the whole rationale of the lickspittle. If Schmalfeld likes it, we must hate it. If Schmalfeld created it, we must despise it. It's hard to be optimistic in the face of that kind of hatred. Now, that's a small-scale hatred when you compare it to what's going on in the Ukraine and some grizzled example of white supremacy going on a killing spree like so many of his brothers before him, mistakenly killing people that he thought were something else other than what he thought he wanted to kill. Good God. You know what it's going to take to save this country? Well, even that I don't think will work. Zombie apocalypse is what first comes to mind, but most of these people we're talking about, a zombie would starve to death around. No, I just take comfort in the fact that I'll be dead soon, and this will be your problem, not mine.
They hate the left.
Deep in the heart of Texas.